In. All right. So today we have a special guest as you all continue to move up, move up, move up, move up. Go grab the ones that's in the back, in the back. All right. We have a special guest here today for this is Financial Literacy Month, and we are honored to have Laurore here with us. She is not only a licensed and practicing attorney, but she's also a financial advisor. So she works in both areas, and it's going to be awesome for you to learn more about how to protect your family's future. So we're going to be talking about estate and how to avoid probate. And we want to make sure that you're taking notes, you're getting the information, because this is really, really, really important. Please go ahead and share. I believe now we are streaming also on YouTube. So if you don't mind sharing this as well, hopefully you share the church service too. But if you can, share this information. And I met Laurore a year ago now, and it was a part of our Accelerate Central Florida program with the African American Chamber of Commerce. And I learned a lot about her business, and I was totally impressed with Laurore, so much so that we also gave her some business, right? So that's how you know you really believe in somebody. And so she's great, passionate about what she does and helping our community. So would you all welcome Laurore Jean-Pierre.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so, can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay, I feel weird using the mic. I gotta, oh, okay. No worries. I know. It feels weird. Well, as Pastor Mike said, I know him as Coach Mike. My name is Laurore. I'm an attorney and financial advisor. My office is in Orlando. I have over 10 years in the financial industry. So my background is really in finance. Started off as a personal banker, then got my licenses as an investor. So I still do that for my clients. But part of it also is estate planning. A lot of what we do is estate planning, making sure our clients are protected, setting up things as trust, wills, and everything else. So our goal today is to talk about estate planning. Tomorrow we'll have a webinar focused on trust, but I want to talk about estate planning specifically because it covers a lot of different things. And I wanted it to be more interactive. I don't want to just be on here just talking to you guys. Thank you so much. It feels better. Thank you. I want you guys to ask questions as we go because I don't want to just, give a speech really. And I want to start off with trivia because I like trivias. True or false? If you have a will, you do not need to go to probate. Oh, okay. I love that. Most people, that's the biggest misconception that, well, I have a will, then I don't have to go to probate. Well, if you have a will, it makes it easier for the probate court to handle your affairs, but it still goes to the court. The judge has to decide, is that will valid? Is it, have all the things that requires a will to have, and then honor your wishes. So that's the biggest misconception that we get, and I'm glad that everyone here knows that. If you have a will, yes, it makes the process easier, but we still go to court. So when we think about estate planning, tell me one or two person in your own words, what does estate planning mean? When you hear the word someone say, oh, I need to get my estate in order or estate planning. Okay. Yes. Yes. Definitely, right? What we talk about estate planning is not something that's, happy to talk about because we're talking about death, right? But I like to remind people that two things are guaranteed in life, death and taxes. Whether we're going to talk about it or not, we're going to have to pay taxes and we're going to die. That's just part of life in general. So estate planning is essentially preparing for that so that when the time comes, it's as easy as possible under the circumstances for our family, right? And before we dive into it, you see the family here, right? We have typically when we think about also generational wealth. That's a thing that talks about a lot. Oh, generational wealth. But again, in your own words, what does generational wealth mean? Anyone? Okay. Making things better for the next generation, right? I always say generational wealth requires two parts, building the wealth and passing it down. And that's where estate planning comes in. You can go ahead and build the wealth and have all these acquired assets. You've got the business, you have, the home, but how do you pass it on to the next generation? That's what's important, the generational part. You guys go to the next slide. And this is just a little bit about us. You can go to the next slide. And again, it's about me. More importantly for me, the reason why I decided to do my firm the way that we do it is that being part of the financial field, I realized there was a gap within our industry, more importantly for us, right? I was working at Merrill Lynch where they wouldn't even look at an account if you don't have at least $250,000 to invest. Where most of us, that looks like me, we don't have that amount of money, but we still want to be able to invest in the stock market. Right? So that was my difference in saying, okay, I want a law firm and a financial firm where no matter how much you have, you can come to us, we'll sit down with you and teach you how to invest and make sure you actually have something in place for your family. That's what really makes us different. The next one. So why is estate planning so important? Why do we need one? When we think about estate planning, again, it's not just about the wills and the trust. Estate planning talks about every stage of your life. If you're sick, in case of a capacity, and in case of just financial and legal help, right? So the main goal is that we are addressing everything that may come up. So you'll see in the beginning here, we say that, 68% of Americans do not have a plan. They may have something like a beneficiary on an account, but they don't really know what an estate planning is. And they may, once in a while, maybe 2 years ago, drafted a will and put it there and never forgot about it. How many of you guys actually have a will or something similar? When was the last time you guys looked at it? Old, right? Those documents are supposed to be something you're constantly looking at because life happens, right? A lot of times clients say, well, how often do I change my documents? Every time life happens. I can't give you a time because life can happen tomorrow. Somebody could pass away tomorrow. So if that person was naming your documents, that document is no longer, valid, right? So life happens. We have to make sure we update those documents accordingly. The next thing is planning for incapacity. I'm sure everyone in here either have a grandmother or someone elderly that has now either has dementia or can no longer decide for themselves. And you come to me sometimes and say, okay, well, grandma can't make decisions for herself. We have to do something, a power of attorney. I can't help you. For her to be able to sign a power of attorney, she has to have capacity. She has to say, okay, I am giving this power away. So if she's already at that stage, we then now have to go to the court system, get assigned a legal guardian, and that process is not only costly, but it is a long process. So when we think about, again, estate planning, it's not only for when the person passes away, but for incapacity. So that when they are here and can mentally say, I want this person to be my agent, we can do so. Because if you come to us after the fact, unfortunately, I cannot help you. Grandma has to be able to tell me what she wants. I can't just take it from your word and say, well, yes, she wanted you to be my agent. I have to speak to grandma, and grandma has to say, yes, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, and I'm giving this power away to this person, right? So again, nothing to do with your death yet, but incapacity, when life happens. Because we're all getting older. It's not only for the elderly either. We could be incapacitated at any age. It's not just for the elderly, okay? The next thing is avoid probate. Let's go back to the first one. I'm sure everyone here has heard of a probate story. How well did that go? Right? And I like to remind people that death and money changes people. No matter how great you guys think you get along, as an attorney, I've been doing this for a while, money and grief changes people. Because when you're trying to grieve, and you're trying to go through the process, and money's involved, it could be $1, it could be $1 million. A lot of times it's not even about the money, it's about the principle. And you find families fighting over it. So estate planning, the hope of it is to make sure that you're avoiding that fight. You're planning accordingly so that when the time comes, there is no fighting, right? And of course, name guardian for your minor children. That's something that we'll talk about as well. I see a lot of kids in here. In the islands, we have what we call, I think here too, right? Godmother and godfather. And I like to ask my parents, right? The parents in here, the person you've named as a godmother for your child, if you had to think about it really, if something were to happen to you right now, would that person be actually the person you would want to take care of your child? Yeah? Sometimes it's not. It could be a best friend that we've known forever. It's like, that's my dog, I love her. But does she have the same moral values, the same things as you to actually raise up your child? That's how estate planning works as well. In your will, you'll name a guardian, someone that you've chosen, that you say, this is the person that I think matches all of my values, that I trust wholeheartedly, because it's your child, right? To say, if something happens to me and my spouse tomorrow, this person is the person I'm going to go ahead and trust to take care of my children. And that's still part of estate planning. It's planning to say, okay, if life happens, I have something in place. Again, nothing to do with death or assets, yes, you see? Because a lot of times we think about estate planning and say, well, I have to have all this money in the bank. I have to be a millionaire. And most of the things we talked about right now, nothing to do with assets yet. It's all about, who do you love and how do you protect them and stay out of court? Got it? Any questions so far?
I like that one. Who do you love?
Yes.
How do you protect them? And how you stay out of court.
And stay out of court. Because really, it's about loving that person enough that you made a decision and you made that decision for them, right? It's like, I like to call it a gift beyond the grave. You took the time to say, I'm going to go ahead and decide right now so that when I do pass away, you can handle things accordingly and not grieve while still dealing with the legal system. And not be mad at me, let's be honest. It's like, Grandma, you could have told me where this account was. Because all of us sometimes, we might think, I know Grandma had a life insurance policy, but where? Right? I know Grandma had a bank account somewhere, but where was it? Did she name a beneficiary? Right?
Hey, Laurore, I know something I heard in my family. I won't mention the family member in case they're watching this YouTube. But I heard them say, well, I don't have anything, so what do I need a will for? What do you say to that?
Well, do you have someone that you love? Right? And it's not, again, about having, a house or anything like that. If you have a bank account, that's an asset. You could have $1 or $2 in it. It still is an asset. If you have a car, that's an asset. If you have children, especially if you have minor children, that's the most important thing, because in the will, that is where we name a guardian for them. So for a single parent, sometimes you're like, well, I don't have a home yet. Do you have a baby girl? You have a baby boy? That's important. Because again, it's not all about the asset. It's coming down and saying, something happens to me. Who do I trust enough to handle my affairs? And it's not only about my asset, also making sure your debt gets paid accordingly. The other misconception we have is that, if you pass away, the debt goes with you. It doesn't. It still goes to the court system, and based on the hierarchy of where the debt goes, you still have to get paid if your estate has the money. So how do we make sure that we protect that and we put it in place so that your debt doesn't take all of your estate, so that your family actually gets something out of that? And we'll talk about that as setting up a trust. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit. Next one. So when we talk about incapacity, meaning the person cannot legally make decisions for themselves, there are 3 top documents that we talk about, which is the power of attorney, the advanced healthcare directive, and the living will. Anyone is familiar with any one of them that you guys heard of? I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of a power of attorney, right? More specifically, I like to mention this because a lot of times we have clients come to us and they think they have a valid document, but it's not valid. Because in our firm, we will always give to you a durable power of attorney rather than a general. And the difference is this. A general power of attorney is only able when the person has mental capacity. The minute that the person has been deemed incapacitated, the doctor says you no longer can make decisions for yourself, general power of attorney stops there. You can no longer use it. A durable power of attorney surpasses incapacity, that even though the doctor says you have amnesia, you cannot make decisions for yourself, if that person has a DPOA, a durable power of attorney, they can still act on your behalf. So a lot of times we have clients that go online and just give something together, and they come, they say, well, Grandma has been deemed incapacitated. I can't help you. I can't use that document because it's not a durable power of attorney that surpasses incapacity. And it will say in a document. So for a client sometimes, they say, well, I can't afford an attorney. And I will always say, I would rather you have something than nothing, but make sure you know what documents you have, because you don't want to have a document that you think is valid, and when it's time to use it, you realize it's invalid. The power of attorney, though, does stop at death. So when that person passes away, it goes away. The other documents kind of step in. So then that would be the will or the trust. But the power of attorney and the health, any incapacity documents, they stop at death. Any questions with that? The next one is the healthcare directive. That one handles everything healthcare, right? Being able to talk to a doctor, being able to have you decide on whether medication, anything healthcare related. That's the healthcare directive. The living will is one that I want to talk about a little bit more because it gets confused with, last will and testament. The living will is a little bit more touchy to say, if I am in an end-of-life situation, God forbid, I'm in a vegetative state, and I don't want to be kept alive by artificial means, do I want someone to pull the plug or be kept alive by artificial means? There is a story of, I always forget her name. Yes. And that was the issue, right? Because she didn't have anything in place, but her parents wanted her to stay alive, her boyfriend did not. Then you have that conflict of, how long do we keep this person alive and honor their wishes? If she had a living will, that would have solved all of that, because then you've already said prior to something happening, hey, I don't want to be careful about artificial means, or yes, I do, so that your family is not left fighting over that. And all the documents that we'll talk today, I want us to think about the person in our life that we want to have that decision making. If you're deciding the person for your power of attorney that handles all your finances may not also be the same person for the living will. I always like to tell my clients the person who is willing and able, meaning I'm willing to take on that task and I'm mentally, emotionally able to do so. Because, for example, with my parents, I can be their DPOA. Legally and financially, I can handle their affairs. But I'm not their agent for the living will, because that requires a different level of emotional capacity, right? That's my mother. I told her, if you'll be on that bed forever, I'm not pulling the plug, right? So it's having that conversation with that person to make sure that they are willing and able. And we don't want surprises. Every document that we draft, we want to have that conversation with that person that we're going to assign. So if it's a living will, to talk to that person and say, hey, I'm doing my affairs. Are you willing and able to act in that capacity? If something were to happen to me and I'm saying I don't want to be careful about artificial means, can you honor that? You don't want it to be that after you pass away or in that situation that they're realizing that you've named them as that person and they don't want that responsibility. Same thing with a guardian, more importantly for a guardian, right? I love my nephew, but I don't want him as a child. Let's be honest, right? I love you, but it's having that conversation. Like my sister, she wouldn't just list me as a guardian without having that conversation with me first. So it's making sure with every person that we're naming in every capacity, we have that conversation with them. It doesn't have to know all about our estate and all of our affairs and all our assets, but saying, are you willing and able that if I'm in a situation that you can do so for me? Does that make sense? Any questions about those documents?
Yeah, question on the Advanced Healthcare Directive.
Mm-hmm.
So before we sign it, okay, my question's on the Advanced Healthcare Directive.
Mm-hmm.
So the form that you can sign in the doctor's office, providing that, is that sufficient, or do you need something even above that?
That's typically sufficient. For the most part, they will honor that. Sometimes you may have additional language you want to have in your healthcare, but for the most part, they'll honor that. So, for example, the living will, I've seen a lot of elderly home provide that. For the most part, they're very straightforward. But sometimes some clients want to have a certain days amount, right? So I have some clients that say, well, I don't want that the first determination that you pull the plug. I want a second opinion, or I want 30 days after that. The more specific you can be, the better it is. With all of our forms, we're very particular about language because just in general, anything legal, you want to be as specific as possible with the language so that they truly know your intentions and nothing's left to guessing or maybe that's what she wanted. So for the doctor's office, typically, they're okay. Yeah.
She's trying to knock me off.
I mean, you should have a backup just in case, you know. The next one. All right, so the biggest thing we get a lot is what is the difference between a wills and a trust? For most people, I tell a will is not enough. If you have children, a will is not enough for you to have. But what is the difference? A will is more so, think of it as a distribution method. You tell the court who to give what to, and that's it. They're not going to go ahead and monitor it for you. Whatever you said, as long as the will is valid, it honors that. Whereas the trust is more of a vehicle that not only can be used while you're alive, also in case of incapacity, and also at death. So the trust is a vehicle that kind of handles at every stage of your life, whereas the will is only effective and valid after you pass away. And again, the will goes to probate, right? So it still has to be submitted to the court. The judge still have to review it and say, is it valid? Yes.
But also after you die.
He's getting steps in.
But even after you die and you have a will, you still have to get an estate account.
Correct.
Because everything needs to be dispersed.
Correct. So the will it's not just, oh, I have a will, let me just get it. You have a will, okay, great, let's go to the court. The court's gonna say the will is valid. Then after the will is valid, it's gonna say, okay, these are the people that gets the asset. And then you establish an estate account. And from there, you get the asset distributed. Then you have to go back and close the estate account and go through accounting. It's a whole entire process to go through the probate court. Mind you, a simple probate, straightforward, can take about at least 6 months, right? A more difficult one can take years to do. I have a client that we've been in probate for them for the past 4 years in Miami-Dade, because we have people fighting over things and we have certain things that we have to do. So probate is not only about the cost, that it does cost you more, but it's the time as well. The time and the stress that it goes through to go to probate. So again, the will is just telling the court, yes or no, here are the people that's supposed to have it. The trust allows you to have a more control. So for the children in here, parents with children, how many of you guys trust your 7-year-old that when they become 18, they can inherit $1 million and they'll be great? Right? Just here's $1 million, have fun, go shopping. Well, if you have a will, let's say, God forbid, you pass away and they were 16. The court's gonna go ahead and hold that money until they're 18, but at 18, they get that without any conditions. Here you are, have a nice day, right? They'll blow through it within probably like the first year or so. With a trust, you get to dictate how they inherit the funds and how they use it. So you could add as many conditions as you want to, as long as they're legal, right? We can't go too crazy on the conditions, but you can really limit on how they use the funds. So a lot of parents, for example, we have, these funds are for you to go to college. This is for you to buy a car or for you to buy a home, or these funds specifically for you to go ahead and do an investment property. You really get to tie it to the condition of what your values are that you want your kids to use it for. Sometimes, to an age limit that you can't have those funds till you're 25 or 30. The trust allows you to really be intentional. Whereas the will, again, the minute that you said, here's who he goes to, the judge is going to honor that and give it to that person, right, to that child at 18 years old with no conditions attached. So when we talk about generational wealth, how do we make sure that we give that cash away, that they are using it properly to pass on to the next generation? I believe the statistic is that 98% of funds and inheritance don't survive the second year. And why is that? Because you get a lump sum of money with no directions, no financial literacy, and you kind of blow it. What we've been doing for a lot of our trust clients, especially with the ones with younger children, is adding a requirement of financial literacy course, right? Because as time changes, we have to accommodate to that change. A lot of times before, we used to see that we had to tie graduation from college. But let's be honest, a lot of kids are not going to the college route, right? And you don't want to tie a condition that's going to be impossible for the child to accomplish. So rather than college, we're saying, okay, you have to at least finish a financial literacy course. So it's not a college degree, but I'm telling you, for you to get this money, you have to go and actually get the financial literacy to be able to manage the money properly. So that's what a trust allows you to do, right? Comparison, the will, you can't control it. The trust is really controlled beyond the grave. You're really putting that condition with the trust to be able to really set up those children for future. Any questions about the trust so far? Yes.
Thank you for being here. I do have a lot of questions. So the trusts and wills go by the state where the person died in if you end up going to probate?
No, well, it depends. So the trust will be based on where your residence is, right? If you move to California, it's still going to honor the trust. It's just that if there's a conflict in law, where you stayed is going to trump, essentially. So like say, for example, you passed away, and we did a trust in Florida. Well, you passed away in California, but you have a property here in Florida, and the trust language is Florida law. So we're going to honor Florida law because that's where you was when you did the trust. But your property is in California. California law is going to control that. So when there's a conflict in law, the trust law is going to trump, but where your property is located is going to be based off of that law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we had a choice, should we research kind of the probate laws of various states? And I don't want to make this about me, but we moved here from Illinois, and he told me to wait till I get to Florida. Well, I'm not going to be in Florida forever, and I don't know when I'm going to die, right? So should I get a trust here, or should I go wait till I think is my final destination?
No, you can get a trust wherever you are right now, right?
Okay.
And then when you pass away, that state, Florida law will control. And sometimes, most of the time, honestly speaking, Florida law for the most part, is better compared to most states' law. When it comes to trust law, we have different ones, like people say Wyoming trust. It depends really, but you want to be where you living, where your resident is at the time of, while you're alive, is where you would want your trust to be. But you can move wherever, and your trust is still valid. It's just real estate properties have a different rules. Wherever that property is located, that law is going to control it.
As you can tell, she's my family, sorry. Can you transfer the trust? Like, let's say you're like, okay, I disagree with Florida law, no, whatever, and I just want to take my real estate and somewhere else. Can I transfer my trust, or I have to start a new one?
No, you can transfer it.
Okay.
We call the trust the location is called situs legally. So if you want to amend the
called
trust,
what?
a situs, S-I-T-U-S. It's just like a weird legal word for it.
Say that again.
Situs, yeah. T-U-S. It's essentially the legal word for trust location. So if you want to amend your trust, right, and say, I want, Texas law to control, you can go ahead and amend it to say Texas law is going to be the law that the trust abides by. Yeah. And there are also different kinds of trusts. We won't get into that because then we'll be here forever. Tomorrow we are having a webinar just for trust law that we will dive a little bit deeper. But I just wanted to make sure to point out the major difference between a will and a trust, right? Because, again, the will, I'm not saying not to have one, because it's a good thing to have one. Because if you don't have one, guess what happens? Let's say, God forbid, Pastor, I'm gonna pick on you. He passes away. He didn't have a will. Well, he stands a chance of cousin BB from third remove to inherit from him. Because when you don't have a will, the state decides for you. And their law is a little bit different. It's heirs based on heirs and your descendants, so it could be far removed cousin that still gets to inherit from you. So a will is still good to have, but a lot of times most people need more than just a will. So I'm not saying to not have a will, definitely have a will, but if you had to compare a trust, especially if you have children or different assets, a trust makes more sense. Okay? And the other thing about the trust, and the major thing about the trust and a will is public. Anyone that you've ever known to pass away, if you really wanted to be nosy, you could go up there on the public records and see their will. See who they left what to, who's the executor, see all of their assets, right? A trust is private. You never, ever have to give your trust documents to someone unless you decide to. So no, you don't have to record it anywhere. I know there's a thing people saying, oh, you record it somewhere. No. A trust, it is completely private. You never have to record it somewhere. Go ahead.
What kind of cost is associated with creating trusts, and also how long do they generally take to create?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. The cost can range, so it depends on what kind of trust you're having and what your family dynamics look like, right? Whether you're married, children, young children. It can range from $3,000 for the trust, and the process typically, you do a questionnaire. We do a planning meeting where we kind of dive in to see what exactly your family dynamics are, your goals. From there, we do the drafting. Then we do a document review meeting to assess look at it together, answer your questions, do any amendments if we need to. And then the final part is when we sit down in person to get it signed and notarized. So really the process is very streamlined, but the cost is really going to be based on your specific situations, right? Someone that is married with 2 children is going to be completely different than a single person with no children, no assets. Okay? And the other thing as well about the trust is that it protects your children from creditors. I like to give that as an example. It's going to age me a little bit, but remember when we were growing up, this commercial that used to say, it's my money, I need it now. J.J. Wentworth? Yes. So this was an example of people that were coming up on an annuity or a trust account, right, a trust baby. They knew that they were going to come get some money. So they say, hey, I'm going to inherit $100,000 in 5 years. Obviously, my parents are still alive. I can't inherit it yet, right? But I need money now. So they go and sell their inheritance and say, I'll give you the $100,000 that I'm supposed to inherit, but you give me $50 now. If you have a trust, and in your trust we have what we call the spendthrift provision, we stop that. They cannot go voluntarily sell their rights away to any creditor or unknown creditor to get money ahead. And also, it also involuntarily stops creditors. So meaning, if a creditor, let's say your child just shops a lot, right? Let's say they have a Macy's card. If Macy's know that your child is a trust fund baby, they cannot come and say, hey, I know there's a trust, pay up. Because we have that provision in there that prevents voluntarily them giving it away or involuntarily having someone coming to do that. So that's the power of the trust, right? Again, the will, they get the money right away. So any creditors, anyone, it's fair game. Whereas the trust, you're protecting not only their present interests, but also their future interests. Does that make sense?
Can you have multiple trusts?
You can. And sometimes it's recommended to have multiple trusts depending on how your estate, sorry, it's really cold in here, depending on how your estate is structured. So for example, I have a lot of investment clients that come to us and they have investment properties and they want to go ahead and put their properties within the trust. For that, I would recommend a different trust, right? Because if you have investment properties, they carry a lot of them liabilities. So if someone gets hurt and they're suing you, AKA the trust, all of your trust assets now are exposed. But if you have separate trust or separate LLC and structured properly, you can avoid that. So really, it depends on your situation and how you want to structure things. But yes, you can have multiple trusts, if it makes sense.
Hold up. I'm coming.
The revocable trust don't protect that your child or your loved one or whoever from creditors. Is that correct?
So the
It does?
revocable trust protects your children, doesn't protect you. So there's different kind of trust. So if you do an irrevocable trust, it'll protect you right away. If you do a revocable trust, upon your passing as the grantor, it becomes irrevocable. So then it does protect your children and their beneficiaries. It doesn't protect you.
Okay, so which one is that you are able to switch up and change while you're alive?
The revocable trust.
The revocable. Okay.
Yeah, and again, today I didn't go too much into trust because we'll be here forever. But tomorrow, again, we'll have an webinar on trust. But essentially, the main two characteristics of a trust, it either can be irrevocable or revocable. Irrevocable meaning the minute that you set it up and we sign it, it's set in stone. You cannot change your mind. It's like, oh, Daddy made me mad today. I'm kicking him out. Sorry, he's already in there, right? Whereas revocable, so long as you're alive, meaning you are the grantor, you are the one granting the wishes, you are able to amend it, change it, or even, I don't even want to trust anymore. That's the revocable one. Most of the times, most people fall into the revocable trust because as life evolves, you want to be able to have the flexibility to change things as needed. Some people, if it makes sense, the irrevocable trust makes more sense. So, for example, people that are they're trying to qualify for Medicaid. They have to fit certain income level and certain asset levels. So if that's the case, we have to create a certain kind of trust that is irrevocable so that you're able to qualify for that. So if it makes sense, irrevocable can fit to that person's, estate planning. But for the most part, most average person, right, the revocable living trust makes more sense.
Oh, you gotta wait on me.
Oh, the steps are getting slower.
Yeah.
Going back to the incompatible, like if somebody has dementia or like Alzheimer's, what if the person before that occurs or the person feels like it's a lot on them where it's like literacy, like some of our parents are not able to understand these things. Can somebody speak on their behalf?
Yes,
Okay.
if they are named their agent or the trustee. So remember, the trust is, like I mentioned, it can be used while you're alive, in case of incapacity, and at death. So if your mom have named you as your trustee, and you are in charge of everything else, yeah, you can go ahead and decide for them. Yeah, as long as they have made that decision prior to them becoming incapacitated.
Or while they're still here.
While they're still here and mentally capable. Yeah, the minute that the doctor have said you are not able to make decisions, we can't do anything. We have to go through the court to get a legal guardianship assigned.
So
Yeah.
to follow up to that, if she's not named as that person, as that trustee,
She cannot.
she cannot.
Yeah, because the
So-
person have to name you as the person that they want to manage their affairs.
And I think some stories I've heard, sometimes that's the most challenging piece, especially with family, sibling rivalries, things
Yeah.
like that, that the parent chose one child to handle it, but that person may not be the best person to handle it, and then there's another sibling that's already doing the work
Yeah.
but never named. So you have any recommendations for that
Unfortunately,
scenario?
it's what the parent decide. right? So that's why I always say willing and able. So if your client, I ask that question, have you talked to them and are they willing and able? And able meaning just because they are your favorite, right, doesn't mean that they have the legal capacity, they have the financial literacy to be in that position. And a lot of times to go into that civil rivalry that we have, I'm just dealing with probate now, we have one child was paying all the taxes, doing everything. But when they pass away, mom didn't have a will, and they expected, because they've been taking care of the property, that it should be to them. It doesn't work that way, because she didn't have a will, so that means it defaults to the state rule, that it gets equally divided. You can say, well, the past 5 years, you can say, well, the past 5 to 10 years, I've been paying the taxes, I've been paying the mortgage, like this should go all to me. Well, mom didn't leave a will, so we have to go by default rule. So a lot of times, again, it's having that conversation, because it's easier to have the conversation when we're all in agreement and we're all happy, there's no one dead, than when the time comes and there's pressure of either somebody's being sick or we're dealing with grief.
Oh, you got a question? Okay, I'm gonna come to you. So
He's taking a rest, y'all.
y'all stop laughing at me. So let's say I'm in a situation where I know this is something I need. I really, it may be a hardship to come up with $3,000 right now. Mm-hmm. What should be my next steps?
Yeah, so at least having a basic will, right? Again, I'm not here to hit anybody over the head with prices, right? But if you cannot afford a full plan, at least having a will and having that conversation, because a simple will, at least, nothing's really simple, but at least if you have a will, that takes away half of the issue, right? If it's a properly valid will. Because a lot of times we've seen wills that are not valid. It's missing a lot of things, and that's another thing, right? You can think you have a will, and I go to court, and the judge looks at me and is like, what is this? Some of the wills, I won't even go to court with them. I'll tell you straight up, this is not, the judge not even gonna look at this, right? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. But having something is better than nothing. In our firm, we also offer payment plans, because we realize not everyone has $3,000 or $1,000 to say, here, do my estate plan. So we'll work with you to make sure it gets done. Because I like to tell my clients, to be honest, I make more money in probate than I do in estate planning. So me doing estate planning is not really to make money, it's to help the client. Because in probate, I can charge you not only the worth of the asset, and I can charge you hourly. My hourly is $350. And probate is a while. So that's a year worth of me charging you hourly for me to handle. Every time I talk to the judge, every time I have to go to court, I have to charge you, right? Depending on how your estate is. So really, it's about making sure you have something in place rather than nothing.
So I shouldn't use LegalZoom.com?
You more likely than not, you end up in court with LegalZoom, because the thing with LegalZoom, you guys, people don't realize, it's not specific to your estate. You can select your estate; it'll go ahead and do so, but it's just giving you anything. A lot of times, it misses most of the important things, so that you think you have. A lot of people, they think they have a power of attorney, and they come to me. I'm like, you have a general power of attorney. It's not durable, so I can't help you. So I would not recommend LegalZoom.
Okay.
No.
So my questioning is that if you didn't leave a will,
Mm-hmm.
and the one party's paying all the taxes, all the bills and whatnot, right? And then these siblings or loved ones come up, and now they want part of it. And say they went to probate court, and then the judge saying that they are entitled to some of it.
Yeah.
Is it best for you to stop paying on the home or sell the home and give everybody their cut and get out that situation?
Well, you can't sell the home until you get a final order from the judge. And the judge, that final order is going to say how that split is supposed to happen, right? And with probate, it's really a litigation kind of matter, right? I can go to the judge and say, hey, here's the receipts of this sibling that have been paying all those things. And as much as we don't want to admit it, when we're in court, it's based on the judge. Yes, they have a law to follow, but it's really kind of based on their preference, right? I can say, here's the receipts. This person has been making all the bills and everything. And the judge can look at me and say, is there a will? No. So the default rule is that they get split evenly. Or another judge can say, okay, I see all the receipts and they have been paying for that. Let's go ahead and see if we can do that, right? But the law says heirs get split evenly. And you cannot go sell it until the judge says, okay, now you have the ability in order to sell the home. You can't just say, I'm just selling the house. It doesn't work that way. You have to have the final order, because anything that is left in the decedent person's name, so the person that passed away.
Hold on. You slow down. Say
Sorry,
that one more time.
It's an island in me. So anything that is left in your name alone when you pass away has to go to court. And the court has to decide if it can be sold or not. So if that property was in mom's name, mom passed away, now it's gonna be in the estate of mom. It has to go to court. The court has to give the final order for it to be sold. And then say upon the selling, it gets divided 50-50 or the case may be, or just transfer the property into their name directly.
So one question, I know, but this one goes with this scenario though. It goes with this scenario. No, I'm saying my question goes with this scenario. I know she has a question. In that scenario, they're harassing me. Okay, in that scenario though,
Yes, ma'am.
that person that have paid the bills, the taxes can get reimbursed on top of before they divide out the
Sometimes it
assets.
can, but I don't want to think that, I don't want you to guys think that it's a default rule.
Okay.
Because you had no obligation to pay for that. You decided to do it yourself, right? So there's no obligation for you to decide, I'm gonna go ahead and keep the house. So I don't want people to think, well, I'm gonna keep paying this and I'm gonna automatically get that. It's not the default rule. The default rule is that it goes equally to the heirs, AKA the children lineal of that person. So would a judge most likely say, let's go ahead and do that? Yes, but don't think, oh, I'm gonna keep paying for the house and I'm gonna get my money back. It doesn't 100% work that way.
Okay, so my question is, or I should say, I'm just saying something based on my experience as a banker. As we talk about finance, one of the things we recommend customers to do, if you're not able to do an estate or go to an attorney or set up, one of the good things that you can do is you can list a beneficiary on your account, because if you died and there's no beneficiary or there's not a trust account or whatever, you have to go to probate. And I've seen where people have gone to probate and it literally takes like 70% of the money that is left for you.
Yeah.
So one of the easiest things you can do is list a beneficiary on your account.
Yeah, easy and free.
It's a very easy process.
Easy and free. You go online, and let me make sure it's an adult beneficiary. So
Yes.
we come into the issue of people naming a child as beneficiary. A child cannot legally inherit anything. So if you leave it to your child and they're under 18 and you've passed away, we still end up in court, because now we have to have a guardian assign over that money and then hold on to it until that child turns 18, and then they get it right away, right? So we want to name an adult as a beneficiary. And I'll get to another point as well, because I know parents in the room, they're like, well, we had a scenario like that. We'll say, well, what if I name my parents or grandparents as the beneficiary instead of my child? Because, I don't have money to do a trust. And to that I say sometimes we can't control people in, intent. The goal is, morally, would say, if I leave the money to my grandparents, my mom, and she knows it's intended for my child, she would do right by me, morally. Legally, she doesn't have to do anything, because that money is for her. Legally, it goes to, let's say I'm using my mom, Ruth, it goes to Ruth. She does not have to do it on my behalf of my child, because that money goes to her. So you run into the issue of people thinking, well, because my child is a minor, I don't want to leave them directly. I'm going to name somebody else that I trust. But you run into the issue of them using the money for themselves. And legally, that you can't do anything about it. So that's where the trust comes in, to make sure you have a trust rather than somebody else. Because we have that issue. And they come like, well, can't we sue them? Sue them for what? That bank is going to honor, it's a contract between you and the bank. They're going to honor that wish. And she's a bank, she could tell you, come, you have the beneficiary listed, you have your ID, here's your money. Yep, right away. Right? So you coming to say, well, I want to sue them because my mom, they for sure knew that was for my child. I can't help you. Okay? Pretty much. Next one.
Let me, you trying to trip me up, little girl? All right, so,
I think we have a couple more slides.
oh, you got a couple more slides? Okay.
But we'll answer, because some of the questions we'll also address as well.
Listen, you all are here. She charges, you heard her, $3.50 an hour. Ask all your questions for free. So when you say, I just want to talk to you for a minute, can I take you to lunch? We at lunch. All right, get all the information you can while she's here, all right? Because after this.
Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is just kind of like a joke, right? Probate becomes part of public display of your affairs. So again, anyone that you've known to pass away, if you wanted to be nosy, you can go up there. And sometimes, honestly, in law school, we used to do that because we used to get the practice of doing that, just to sick of seeing what's out there. And you get to see a lot of things, right? From the will to, who has the creditors, you get to see everything. Whereas, again, the trust is completely private. Next. So how to avoid probate, right? One of the big things that she mentioned is beneficiaries. That is free to do. It doesn't cost you one thing. Most banks will allow you to do online. You go online, you say update beneficiaries, and you add it. The other thing is Lady Bird deed. I don't have that on there. So most people, biggest asset is your home. That's your biggest asset. You can have investment accounts and everything else, but that's your biggest asset. Typically, you either want to sell or pass down to your families. The way that we protect that with probate is what we call the Lady Bird deed, and the legal names for it is an enhanced estate life deed. What that does is that adding a beneficiary to your home, an adult, so not a child, but upon your passing, so for those, let's say your grandparents, they have a home. Maybe a trust doesn't make sense for them, but we can still use a Lady Bird deed where we're adding yourself or somebody else as a beneficiary. So while they're alive, they still own the property. And most importantly, they retain their homestead, which is big, right? We want to make sure we have our homestead exemption. They still retain all of that. But upon their passing, then whoever they've named inherits that. So completely avoid probate. Because again, if that property is just in their name alone, and if they pass away, we have to go to court. But for the people that may not have a trust, we can go ahead and use the Lady Bird deed to make sure that the property, the real estate property, gets to the right person without having to go to court. Do they inherit that? Yes. So if there is a mortgage on it, do they inherit the debt? If there's a mortgage on the property, the person gets it subject to the mortgage, right? So if, let's say, grandma has a house and she has $100,000 left on it, she used a Lady Bird deed to add you as the beneficiary. You get the property right away and avoid probate, but you're also subject to that mortgage as well. The mortgage doesn't just go away, unfortunately.
Hold up. Hold up. We want to benefit those that's watching online.
Yes, you said the mortgage gets transferred. Well, the person has to pay the mortgage, but would they have to be able to qualify for that mortgage? And if they don't qualify, what happens with the house?
Yeah, so most of the time they have to qualify. So sometimes some mortgages have assumable mortgages where you can go ahead and assume the same rates and everything else, but they do have to qualify. It's not as if they can go ahead and just come for it. If they don't, most banks all the time will go ahead and force sell it. So it really depends, because you can't, let's say mom had great credit, but you now assume the mortgage. Well, the mortgage now has to go under you. You don't have the credit for it. The bank's not going to go ahead and say, well, that's fine. They're going to have to, you're going to have to find a different way to make sure they secure their mortgage. So a lot of times, if you do have a life insurance policy, leaving it into a trust to say this proceeds supposed to pay the balance of the mortgage, that helps as well. So that, because if you have a policy, life insurance policy, and you leave it to somebody specifically, again, it goes to them. But if you put it in a trust and you direct the trustee to use that funds for the mortgage then they can pay. Because if you leave it to them, yes, let's say you have 3 children, you leave it to one, they can take that money with themselves and just take it away because there's no direction for that. But if you specifically said in the trust, this is for you to pay the balance of the mortgage and then sell the house, whatever the case may be, they'll honor that. They have to honor it. Okay? I think that was the only thing about that. You could go to the next slide.
You just skipped over the price of probate.
Oh, so we talked about it earlier. The typical price of probate is about average $6,500 or more, depending on where the probate is, and also depending on the county, right? So, for example, our firm, we no longer take Miami-Dade probate. We just don't. So if you know somebody that passed away in Miami-Dade, I love you, but do not send us to us. Because Miami-Dade is a different county and different country in general. Their process is more expensive, it's more headache, so it's just a longer process. Most probate in Miami will last you about a year. And that's just the truth of it, because their process is just so different. In Lake County, for example, they're in the 1920s. They want you to physically mail them an order, pre-stamped, so they can mail it back to you. When most counties, everything online. So it depends on which county you fall into, how much it's going to cost you, and the time it's going to take. So again, probate is not a 1-2 step, depending on your estate. it is very costly, not only in time and money and stress for me as the attorney. So Miami-Dade, I have great referral services that I could send you guys to, but if it's in Miami, we don't take them. Okay. The next thing. Again, same thing we talked about, right? Making sure an adult is listed as beneficiary, having joint account owners, and also using Lady Bird deed. I do want to talk about the real estate property because a lot of times we have singles who have bought a property, and I make this joke: if you're single with just a real estate, you're walking probate. What does that mean? Because you're the only person named on that property, 100% going to end up in probate. So what do you do? Sometimes we may think, okay, can I add somebody else on the property? I have an example, a client that maybe 2 years ago we had that situation. Boyfriend and girlfriend, we're in love. Yay, we bought a house together. Great, they bought the house, tenants in common. The deed is going to determine how your property is inherited. Tenants in common mean my share if I pass away is going to go to my heirs. Your share when you pass away is going to go to your heirs. Boyfriend passed away. Girlfriend now owns the property with boyfriend's heirs, family, right? And there were, at the time boyfriend passed away, they were exes, right? So now I own the property with my ex-boyfriend's family because you guys did tenants in common, not tenants by survivorship. So when we're buying a property with anything just in general, we have to make sure how we own it. If they had a right of survivorship, the minute that boyfriend passed away, girlfriend would inherit the entire property because of right of survivorship. So when we're buying properties, it's important for us, especially the single people, to know how we are buying that property if we're going to put somebody else on that deed with us. So we can be in love today, and it's great, but make sure it's right of survivorship and not tenants in common. And sometimes some people want it to be tenants in common because they say, well, I want my share rightfully to go to my family. But just keep in mind the issue that may come up. That means you're going to own that property with somebody else's family that you may not care for, and that means you're going to have to either sell the property or buy out their interest, and it's an ugly mess because if they don't want to sell, then you have to buy out their interest and think of all the different things that can come with that. So especially when it comes to real estate property, make sure you talk to an attorney to make sure how you want to actually own that property legally. Does that make sense? All right, the next thing is the typical excuses, right, that we talked about. I don't have any assets. I don't have a house, bank account, life insurance, nothing. Well, if you have children, that's something that you should care about. If you're alive, you should care about at least incapacity documents, meaning if you're sick, if you're unable to make decisions, to have someone make for you. And especially in the incapacity part, I think 2020 taught us that death and sickness is not reserved for the elderly, right? So incapacity doesn't mean that you are mentally gone. It can easily mean that you're stuck in a country somewhere else and you can't attend to your affairs. Someone that is legally your agent can make decisions for you. So don't think of incapacity just like, oh, I have to be mentally being deemed incapacitated by a doctor. It can just mean that you are unable to make decisions at this point of time, right? So having a power of attorney, again, nothing to do with assets, can help that. You had a question? Yes. He's way back there. He's not gonna make it.
Who had a question? we have two mics now.
So what if you have someone who says, when I die, I leave you to do X, Y, and Z for me. So go to the bank and take out X, Y, and Z so you can handle my affairs when I pass away. A lot of people, especially Haitian communities, think that verbal commands work. And I want it to be known that it does not work.
No, we do not honor verbal wills, audio wills. We had a case where somebody was, they felt like they was about to die in a car accident. They made a recording. Great, too bad, too sad, doesn't count. It has to be a written will, signed, notarized, and witnessed. Well, the law doesn't require notarization, but I would definitely want to make sure you notarize that, but it has to be a witness. So we do not honor verbal wills. And that's another thing, too, within our community, not only the Haitian community, that we think that, if I trust someone, I tell them that it's enough. Legally, they have to have the power to do so.
Okay, my other question is, how do you handle when someone passes away here, but the next of kin is out of country? What's the best way to go through the process of handling their estate, making sure everything's closed out, probate-wise, where you get permission to handle their estate and the person is like
their family's not here?
Yeah, well, it depends, right? If we can at least have contact with that person, we can go ahead and have them sign the documents, we could send it to them and get it notarized and get a translator, whatever the case may be. If we cannot find them, then we have to go through an investigator, which is a private investigator that goes through the search and everything else, because we have to tell the court that we've tried all our best, right? We can't just say, oh, they're not answering, judge, guess the money goes to somebody else. We have to show that we've taken the steps, that we've hired a private investigator, that we've done everything that we can to try and find that person. If we cannot, then if they're not, the next of kin is not, then we go to the next person who's legally able to inherit. If it's not mom, then the siblings, all the way to cousin Dede, can inherit because they didn't have a will. But we have to go through our first lineal, kind of like descendant process. Okay. The second one is I'll just name my spouse as beneficiary on all the accounts. Right? It's like, well, I don't need a will. We have joint accounts. That's okay. If you have children, especially that we see a lot, we have mixed families where we were married before and we have, separate children. How can you guarantee that your spouse is going to honor your wishes for your children? Right? Again, we all can say we trust someone, but I can tell you, and that's not me being cynical, death and money changes people. When you're dealing with grief and you're having money involved, whether it's $1 or $1 million, things changes people. So rather than trying to leave things to chance, why not have it in a legal, enforceable document that will make sure that everything abides by those rules, right? The next one is the I don't care what happens, I'm dead. That's a lot in the Haitian family. It's like, well, I'm not here no more, so why do I care? And that's like the most selfish thing you can say, because at the end of the day, where your family is left over to deal with the issue, right? It's not only about burying you, it's about trying to find ways. And, I joke around this all the time and say, we have come way too far to keep making barbecues to bury grandma. Like, if I say one more GoFundMe to pay for grandma's funeral, we are in the time that we know better, we should do better. Right, so not caring and say, well, I'm not going to be here. I can't even grieve you properly because I'm pissed off at you because you didn't take a time to sit down with an attorney properly and get your affairs in order. Right, so that shouldn't be an excuse to say, well, I'm no longer here. Then that's a legacy you want to leave behind? That grandma didn't take time to even 2 minutes to talk to an attorney just to see what she can do. And again, even though I'm a big advocate for trust, sometimes your estate does not call for a trust because you can still avoid probate with a ladybird deed or anything else without having a trust. So don't think either a trust or nothing else, right? There are other ways for you to make sure to avoid probate and still have your legacy protected. The next one, I don't know where to start, so I'll just use LegalZoom. I guarantee you 99% of the time if you use LegalZoom, your family will probably come see me still. So now you've done wasted time and money and we still can't even do anything. So LegalZoom is not the best way ever, but if you have to find something, our firm, we won't do it, but some firms, if you have a do-it-yourself document, they'll at least review it for you to make sure that it's okay. The reason that we don't do it anymore is that if we review it, then we also take on the liability of that it is correct. That if we miss something, you can come back to us and say, well, I had an attorney review it, so then it's your fault. So we no longer do that. But some firms will still do it, because the thing is that we'd rather you have something than nothing. But because of the liability part, we try not to do that, because when we take on another document to review that was drafted by yourself and we overlook something because we didn't draft it ourselves, we run into the liability issue, okay? And then the last one, it costs too much. I like to say people will spend money on what matters to them, right? So if you care about your family, you would go ahead.
Care about the Lord.
It's true. If you care about it, you'll plan for it accordingly. Because, again, estate planning is not the happiest topic to talk about. But if you, just like anything with budget, if you care for it and you know the cost, you save for it accordingly. And, again, I'm not the only attorney here. There are other attorneys, right? Shop around to see, but get it done. Because at the end of the day, it's going to cost you way more if you don't do it than if you do it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it more cost efficient to do the
Microphone.
Right.
Use the mic. They can't hear.
Well, I had a question first. So you talked about having a house and a bank account, but what if you have cars that's in your name only? What documents do you need?
That would be the will. Because in the will, if you have the car listed and you say, my automobile go to whoever, they can bring a certified copy of the will to the DMV and it's just a title transfer. They'll, of course, pay for the title transfer fee, but that gets avoid probate as well. The car in the will, we don't ever want to specify the kind of car because things changes, you could just say all interest in my automobile to this person, and that would avoid probate. Yeah.
Would it be more cost efficient to do the Ladybird and opposed to doing the irrevocable trust?
Yes, cost efficient, yes, but also if it matches your estate planning strategy and goals, right? So, for example, a parent that have adult children and they just have a home, a ladybird deed may be more cost efficient, no grandchildren. A parent with young children, a ladybird deed may not be the best thing. It may be cost efficient, but you have children that cannot inherit that property yet. So I wouldn't do a ladybird deed for parents with young children, minor children, because we can't do so. They can't inherit.
Okay, so if you have an adult, I have one child, he's an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna go to probate lawyer and have all the insurance money pay that mortgage, because like you said, my son is not good with money, okay? And I don't want him to lose my home because he's still eating out $300-400 a week type of thing. So I would look into that ladybird thing because I only have one and I don't have any grandchildren.
Yeah,
So
so the
like you
ladybird
said,
deed.
with my son, he'll be broke 6 months after I'm gone. Okay, so
So in this case, though, you see, perfect example that a ladybird deed may be cost efficient because you're going to avoid probate. But if you leave everything to him as beneficiary in a will, he gets it. He gets no condition attached. So that means he can spend the money whenever he wants to. But if it's in a trust, you can actually name somebody else, so not your son, as trustee, to manage it on his behalf and give him an allowance. We have that option as well, right? Again, you get to really play with language and how they inherit. So you can say you get $1,000 once a month, or that you get, this amount of money and you have to show to the trustee why you need it for, so that it really gets to manage on his behalf. So, perfect example that it may be more cost effective, but because of the facts of what you've mentioned, that he doesn't quite know how to, manage his money, giving the money to him on a lump sum would not be the best thing for him. Yeah.
I think that's
What
a good.
is the cost for the
Go
ladybird
ahead.
deed?
What was that?
What is the cost for the ladybird deed?
$750.
Okay.
Yeah, and that when we do the deed for you, we draft the deed, but we also record it on your behalf. Because the thing is, we want to make sure that it's recorded properly. If it's drafted and it's done and it's not recorded, you've done nothing but waste money. So we have to make sure that is recorded with the clerk of court, so that something happens to you, they have it on file that it goes to that person. So all they have to do, honestly, submit the death certificate, and the clerk, depending on where you are, takes about 3 weeks or sometimes 8 months. But at least it goes to their name without any issues, without having to go to probate. Yeah.
Anybody else? Other questions? Any other questions?
Right? I think I have next, yes.
I've also heard of Ethos.
Ethos as in like the account?
Oh, no, it's a website that helps you with trust and wills.
I've never heard of them.
Oh.
No, but just in your situation, we equate all online entities that do wills and trusts, that it leaves you open to problems.
Yeah.
So we, as professionals, even though I'm not an attorney, but I've been around enough of them to know, we do not advise that, because you may be in the same situation all over again regardless. But I was going to say, to your point, I think that's where we have to make up in our mind what's most important to us. And so if we know we have children that are not responsible yet, that maybe we can put something that helps them to be responsible in the trust. Yeah. To say, okay, well, I'm not just giving this to you for you to make your life worse, right? Or we may be enabling them to continue the same cycles. And so I think for, the little extra cash or whatever, just think about it that way, that it's going to be worth that money to make sure it's able to stay in the family, and that they have to live by what your wishes are. And I think that's what we miss. Like, once we're gone, if we didn't state how they have to utilize it, they can do whatever they want. So if they want to turn around and sell it the next day and blow it and go do whatever, they at the casino with Ruth, like, they can do whatever they want. So I think sometimes just having that reality and connecting with it. Like, no,
Yeah.
this for real. You know, because sometimes we don't want to think about it, and that's the problem. So, thank
And
you.
I want to add to that because we have a probate that we're dealing with. Grandmother passed away, sold the home, and the assets were supposed to be split between two siblings. Because it was just a will, that means the money goes to them right away. One sibling had substance abuse. They were able to find him in California. He overdosed 4 months later. But if we had a trust, in our trust, especially at our law firm, we have legal language that says a trustee has full discretion to withhold money, even though mom said you get an allowance of $1,000. But I'm giving you additional discretion to say, if I see that you're having such legal issues, substance abuse, marriage, divorce, I as a trustee have the discretion to withhold that money until you resolve that. Because you can say as a grantor, upon my passing, you get a $1,000 allowance. Now I'm the trustee, you're no longer here. I'm managing your asset. But in the trust, I'm giving you the power to say you have the discretion to withhold the money. So I see that he doesn't manage his money well, even though you say I have $1,000 I can give to him, but you also give me the discretion to say, if I see that it's gonna be for his well-being, withhold that money until he gets his stuff together, then give them the money. So that's the power of the trust, because again, once the will, and it's sad, right? Because 4 months later he overdosed, and they hired us again because he did have kids to do his affairs now. But is the control of being able to say, I surely want my money to go to that you are able to better yourself and not put yourself in a worse situation that you were before that money came to you.
My question is, if you have the death certificate of a family member who passes away, what is the time frame for probate if you decide you don't want to handle the whole process of paying for all of that? What is the time frame that you have before you can go back into probate to claim that time?
Legally or illegally? I'm just playing. But
because I know there's a statute of limitation on certain things.
How do I say this with my attorney hat?
You can take both hats off and on.
You can tell us, we ain't telling nobody.
So there is an advantage sometimes to wait. You could still submit the death certificate to the court so that you show that person had passed away. But there is an advantage to waiting 2 years after the person passed. Because when you wait 2 years, there are certain steps you can skip. So, like, for example, there's a creditor's period where if a person passes away, you have to, if the person passes away, you have to, oh, baby. No, not poor baby. So when someone passes away, you have to legally name them in a what we call publication. You have to post a notice that says, hey, this person has passed away. If you owe any money, come forth and we'll go ahead. If the estate has money, pay you, right? It's a 90-day period where we kind of run the newspaper and they really have to wait for 90 days, can't do anything until that month, somebody owes, if they owed anyone money, to come forward. If they've passed away and it's been 2 years since that, we don't have to do that 90-day period. We can skip it. So a lot of times, again, I'm not, legal, you guys still have to report it. Okay. But strategic-wise, I've had, clients, well, the person is 1 month shy of being that 2-year mark, right? Yes, we still let the court know that the person had passed away, but once we start a probate, if it's under that 2-year mark, we have to do the creditor's period. We have to legally say, hey, this person had passed away, here's 90-day notice. If you owe anything, come forth and everything else. So, answer your question, right? So but at the same time, some people don't want to wait the 2 years because if they have a bank account that has money that they need to use, we have to go ahead and do the probate. But if it's just, something small, sometimes we can wait. But for example, we had an issue, we had to do the probate right away because it was a roof issue. Mom passed away, the property is just in her name. They needed to do an insurance claim. The insurance won't touch it unless you do the probate to now the person's name. So a lot of times you don't think about that, and that's a lot of times when clients come to us when they need to do something. It's like, I'm living in the house. Grandma passed away 20 years ago. I've been living in the house, paying the bills and everything. Now we have an insurance claim. Insurance telling you they're not going to honor it because you have a dead person that owns a property. That's impossible. You have to make sure you own the property. Then we're doing the probate now to make sure the property is transferred to the proper name. So sometimes when a situation like that, right, if we have a hurricane claim, you can't wait 2 years. Like, I need to do this and do the creditor's claim and everything else, but just think about it. That's 90 days that we have to wait and sit still.
Right.
That's already 3 months of the time that it takes for probate. So that's why it's important for you to avoid probate, because those 3 months, we're just waiting. We publish it, we're waiting to see who creditors come forth, see if it's valid, pay or don't pay it, and see how we go from there.
So 2 years, and then you claim at probate? At probate?
Claim, so what do
Like
you
you
mean?
go to probate, say, hey, provide the process of, okay, I have the death certificate.
And go through it, like, everything, every document, and then the judge giving that final order to say, you know, this goes to whom and the percentage. It's a much easier process if after the 2 years, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Especially if it's not a complicated probate. Let's say it's just a home, you know, a couple siblings, it's just very straightforward. If we're the 2 years. If it's more than siblings and, you know, somebody has then passed away and they had children, then we have a little bit of a more complicated thing to deal with. So it really depends, but that's why we avoid probate. And it's for Miami-Dade, don't call me.
I have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a sister that recently passed away up north, and her son told me that she was a hoarder. He said he couldn't even get in the house. Is there a way of me or him finding out if she had insurance, if, you know, if she had anything of value, that he could possibly, you know.
Up north where? What state?
New York.
Okay, I don't know if New York's one of the states. So a couple of the states allow that even, so like Florida, for example, you cannot just safeguard a will. The will does not go to the court until that person has passed away. Some states allow that if the person have created a will, they can safeguard it in the court system so that if they do have a will, you would know. I don't know if New York is that, but I would say try to see if New York is one of those states. Or if he knew that she worked with an attorney, because most of the time the attorney will have a copy of whatever they've done. So like our firm, we keep a copy of anything that we've signed, so that if the person cannot find the original, what this will have a copy to say a will exists. We also hire private investigators that do an heir search, so they can see not only for heirs, but also for accounts, see life insurance policies, anything asset search to see if there's anything out there. Because a lot of times you see, if a fund, for example, and she could speak to you like a banker, right? If an account stays dormant, essentially no one claims it and it's just there and they didn't have beneficiaries, eventually it goes to the state. So for, you know, family members that say, I don't care, and you have an account, it's just in your name, I feel like you care a little bit to at least leave it to somebody in your family rather than just the state, right? Because after a couple of years, it does, I believe the dormant rule, it'll go dormant after 3 years, and after 5 years, I believe it goes to the state. I'm not 100% sure in the time frame, but eventually, if no one claims it, it goes to the state. There's like a whole pile of funds that is unclaimed property in the state. Yeah, and it just sits there. And it's just basically free money for the state. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to leave the state a dollar. But
Okay, my question is, what if your attorney, you know, they get elderly and they decide they no longer want to practice? What do you do to get those documents for someone who, for example, has dementia? I had my stuff already set up, and it's with my lawyer, is what they told you before they became incapacitated. What do you do, and how do you get those documents so you know what to do with their estate?
yeah, so prior to, I don't know how long, 3 years ago, Florida law did an inventory thing where essentially every attorney now had to have an inventory lawyer, so that if I pass away or if I no longer do my firm, there's another attorney that's supposed to handle my firm cases for me. So I have a vault where I keep all my files. Now, the attorneys from the 1990s, I don't know, because we didn't have that law before then. So it's a matter of, you know, seeing if they have those files still. Because a lot of those old attorneys, they actually had the physical document in a vault somewhere. So if they retired, like it or not, they probably just, you know, either put them in a safe deposit box or contacted the client and see if the client is still alive or shredded them, unfortunately. How long ago was that attorney?
I don't know. We just found out that the attorney stopped practicing. So
Yeah.
finding out in the dad's in and out. So like finding out where he put all his stuff, where everything's at. He may have the documents in a file, but as far as like finding the attorney, that was a needle in a haystack. We actually found the attorney, but we don't know where he is and who's taking over his firm after. It was a private practice attorney at that.
Try to do contact the Florida bar. Because
Okay.
even if they're not practicing, the photo bar will have a contact information for them upon their retirement, especially if they have their own firm,
Okay.
so that they can go ahead and contact them. So if you go to the photo bar, they should be able to give you at least their contact information,
Okay.
even though they're no longer an attorney.
Okay. Now, what
Yeah.
if they incapacitated? Who talked for them?
The attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
So it really depends, but yeah. Gotcha. I think we have just one last slide.
Oh, I had a question going off of what she was saying.
Yeah.
So, what do you recommend people keep their wills, trust, all that stuff?
Not in a safe deposit box.
Not
Not in a safe deposit box, because think about it, if you're the sole person allowed to go into that safe deposit box, you pass away, they end up in court still to have been assigned to go into it. So somewhere home that is a safe, and that is not too safe, right? But you'll tell the person who's in charge where it is. And a copy somewhere in a cloud somewhere is good as well, right? Because the will, they'll always need the original. But if you have a copy, let's say the original is lost, we can go to court and prove a case that one existed, even though we don't have the original.
So you can email somebody your.
Correct. You could email them, someone that you trust, a copy of all your documents, so they could have on file. But not a safe deposit box. Under no circumstance, not a safe deposit box.
Next slide.
All right, so this is just kind of like our plans, essentially. We have the will package, we have the legacy plan, and we have my whole life plan. Because we are also a financial firm, my whole life plan, remember that when we talked about it, it also includes us establishing an investment account for you and showing you what to invest in and selecting the allocations for you. Because a lot of times we have clients who want to invest but don't know exactly what to invest and how to invest. So that's our things. And our price range from $2,000 to $7,000. So it means from the lowest end, from the will package, to the highest end of a $7,000 where we do everything for you. The wills package, it doesn't show that here, but if you have a property and you're doing a wills package, we will always include the Lady Bird deed for you, because that is your biggest asset. So we want to make sure that it avoids probate. Okay? And again, the trust will be dependent on the kind of trust. And if you're married, single, it really depends. So I can't just tell you, well, it's going to be $3,000 or $5,000, because it's really going to depend on your family dynamics and what you're trying to accomplish. Okay?
Next slide.
Yes, ma'am.
So to start the process, what documents do we need in order for us to start the process?
Yeah,
or
so
what do you
we
need
do-
us to bring to you?
So
that-
initially we have the consultation, then we have what we do, give it to you, a questionnaire. It's about 7 pages, asking you all those things, right? The people that you want to play a part and all those things. If you have existing documents that you have, we do want to see them, because we want to review them and make sure that whatever we're creating is either, abolishing the old one and just making sure we're in check. But the questionnaire is going to ask you all the questions that we would need. And when we have our planning meeting, that's when we actually dive a little bit deeper and really plan on how we're going to go ahead and set up your documents. And then we go from there. Yeah. And then why choose us, right? We specialize in estate planning. So we're not a criminal law firm that every now dabbles in wills and trusts, or personal injury that dabbles in wills and trusts. This is what we do. In and out, we draft trusts on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And probate and estate planning is what we care about. Not so much probate, but it comes with the territory, so we have to do it. But that's what we do. We specialize in estate planning, so we do your personal and also business estate planning. And again, we've been doing it for years now, and we have helped clients make sure that they save their legacy, right? To make sure that you pass it on to the next generation. And we're very particular about, if you work with us, we're very particular about the intent in our language. Our trusts have withstand litigation and have withstand, you don't know how good your insurance is until you need it, right? So we've had, unfortunately, 5 clients pass away since they've hired us, and the trust, everything went smoothly. And that tells a testimony of how well our documents are drafted, because we are very intentional about the language that we use and very intentional to your case. You will never hear us give you a one-size-fits-all, because your situation is completely different than hers. So that's one thing as well. And again, most importantly, we would help you fund the trust if you set up the account with us, right? The trust with us, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I got a trust. Great. What's in it? Right? You've done nothing but waste money and time. So because we are a financial firm and we have the financial background, we will help you make sure that the trust is funded properly so that upon your passing, that when you're saying $1,000 in allowance, the trust actually has $1,000 to give an allowance. It's not just words on paper, but actually money to give. Okay?
So how do they contact you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, this is just a quick thing of our overall step, what to expect. We have the consultation that we talk over the phone, our planning conference, our document review, and our document signing. So it's really a 4-step process. We make it very streamlined. For the most part, everything can be done via Zoom. The only thing that we need to be in person is the signing of the documents. So a lot of clients, just for convenience sake, they like to just be in Zoom. Some older clients, they want to be in person. They're like, I want to see you. And that's fine. But the only time we need to be in person, really, is the signing of the documents. We have to be in front of a notary, 2 witnesses, to make sure that you're not crazy and you're not being forced, and that you're signing it and getting it done. But it's a 4-step process, essentially.
Next slide.
Thanks. We already asked all of the questions.
Next slide.
And this is just a quick thing to say what our services are. We do estate planning, probate, financial planning, investment consulting, and small business law. Small business law meaning if you need to establish your business and also make sure your business is protected so that it can inherit also your children properly for your business. And this is just kind of like our information to contact us. On most social media platforms, we're known as the finance attorney. We do a lot of educational things on different topics as well, so we'll have something specifically to one specific topic to kind of help educate. And the next one.
What is it again on Instagram? It's the finance attorney.
Yeah, at the finance attorney.
At the finance. So you all open your phone. If you all could follow her. What is it on Facebook?
JP Law and Wealth. So it's under the firm's name.
JP Law and Wealth.
Advisors.
Spelled out. JP Law and Wealth Advisors.
Yeah. So the name of the firm on Facebook.
So go follow her on Facebook.
I am on TikTok.
What's your handle on TikTok?
The finance attorney.
The finance attorney.
Yeah.
All right, you all follow her. You can get more information.
And then we have tomorrow, could go next. We're gonna have a webinar because we have webinars all month. And it's specifically about trust. So we're gonna talk about the kinds of trust. We're not gonna talk about all the documents that we talked about today. It's gonna be about what is a grantor, what is a trustee, how do you manage a trust, how do you make sure you get things done. So if you sign up for the webinar, it's at 7 p.m., so it's after, the day dies down. It's webinars directly on Zoom. You don't have to be on camera. It's completely, just to really get to talk about the kinds of trust and how do we set it up. So it'll be all about trust tomorrow.
All right. And I can send this out to you all if you all want to get the slides. That's okay with you?
Yeah.
If you want the slides, I can send them to you. If you all know our text and church number. You all know our text and church number, 407-449-8884. And you just going to put trust in there, okay? And I can send you the documents, 407-449-8884.
Yeah, so tomorrow it will be via Zoom.
Type trust, and I can send you this information, okay?
I think you should bring, once you scan it, it will bring up the Zoom registration, just put in your name. It will be as, yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it's at 7 p.m. again. We're going to cover everything, everything trust from revocable to irrevocable and how it works. And then the last one is just as a thank you, instead of paying our consultation fee, if you scan it, you get a free 15 minutes consultation.
Ooh.
So you won't be charged $350. Yeah.
Go back one. Thank you.
Just tell her Pastor Mike sent you.
So that's for the Zoom, and then the next one is for the free 15 minutes. It gets directly on our calendar, so you can go ahead and have a consultation with us so that we can see how we can help. And the one thing I want you guys to take from here, the ones that do have adult children, at least in the meantime, add a beneficiary to your account. It's free. It takes you then less than 2 minutes, and you just go online and add a beneficiary to make sure that if something happens to you, they will inherit right away without having to go to court. It's easy and free.
But for the home, they'll have to do more.
For the home, unfortunately, they'll have to do more. It's not as easy. Yeah, so on the old banks, yeah, you do have to go in person. But some banks will allow you to do online, but at least do that. Because again, it's free. You just add a beneficiary upon your passing. It is smooth sailing instead of them going to court.
I just want to make this one comment because I learned the hard way. When my husband passed, he had a Chase account that he didn't have a beneficiary for. And I was just assuming because we were married, it automatically went to me.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. I had to go to court
Yes,
and
ma'am.
pay money to get that little bit of money that he left
Yes,
in that
ma'am.
account.
Yes. Thanks for mentioning that. Yes, because
If you're married to the person, you automatically get it because it's not the case.
yes, ma'am. Thank you for saying that. And even when they are still alive, don't assume because they're married you can call the bank or call and speak on their behalf. It's like, no. Just because you're married does not give them your automatic, legal agent on their behalf. You have to be legally named that person to be able to make decisions for them. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that because that's the biggest misconception. Just like, well, that's my husband. Okay, that's great. And
I had to take the paperwork to court, and it took like 8 months
yeah.
for them to give me a letter to take back to the bank to release the funds.
Yeah, and even sometimes, when the person passes away and let's say your husband was just the person that's listed on the deed and you guys been married for 20 years, but he's the sole person on the deed. And it's clear as day, like obviously I'm his wife, we have a marriage certificate and I have children, you still have to go to court because the deed is just his name.
And then my house didn't just roll over to my name, it went to
His estate, exactly. So it's a lot of things we can't just assume because we're married, we automatically get this umbrella of safety and legal protection. It does help make the process easier, but you still have to have your affairs in order. All right, well, thank you guys for letting me take over your afternoon. I appreciate it.
I don't bring no junk in here. Come on now. Thank you, Laurore.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You all are welcome to go home. Pray for me. I got to teach tonight. All right. Thank you. Y'all be blessed.